Hello, friends. So I want to offer what's wanting to be called a recalibration of the creative spirit. So this is for all of you coaches, writers, do-gooders out there, those who are committed to raising the vibration of the planet, to uplifting and up-leveling humanity, those who are committed to being of service, to creating art in a way that is inspiring to others. So anyone who falls in this domain of a creative, a do-gooder, an influencer, this is a recalibration for you and also for myself. So I've really been sitting with this quote from Thich Nhat Hanh that says, there is no difference between means and ends. There is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. There is no way to enlightenment. Enlightenment is the way. And that quote in and of itself has been a recalibration for me, something that I've noticed throughout my almost 7 years now journey as a coach and as a writer and retreat host and somebody who creates content that hopefully makes a difference for others. Something I've noticed is that I can often go into this stress response space about wanting to make a difference. So I can be stressed out thinking about all of the empowering topics that I want to write about. And I'm becoming increasingly aware of the inconsistency and the inauthenticity of that. And also how much it drains me to come from that red zone place when creating, to come from the belief that I have to create. And really, it's the ego wanting to get validation out of making a difference for others. So something that I absolutely love doing, I love speaking about these transformational concepts. I love writing. I love coaching so much. And then sometimes my ego comes in and makes it this laborious task of something that I have to do in order to be purposeful. My ego tells me that if I don't create enough content, then I am less worthy. I'm worth less as a human being. And so my ego really sabotages and sucks my joy, becomes this energetic vampire that leeches me of my natural enthusiasm, my natural inspiration, my natural joy, and my natural desire to want to do these things. So what I really invite all of us to do is get clear about the ways of being that our work represents. So whether it's that you are an entrepreneur and you have a creative company, what ways of being does that company embody ideally? So does this company embody playfulness, connection, peace, joy, love, balance, stillness, calm, confidence, acceptance? Are you an advocate for a social justice organization, or are you a volunteer? If so, what ways of being does that organization stand for? Does it stand for peace? Does it stand for the worthiness in the lives of all human beings? Does it stand for compassion? If you're a coach, what ways of being do you stand for in the world? Okay, so really, really getting clear about what ways of being your organization, your nonprofit, you as a coach, your writing, your song making, what ways of being do you stand for in this creative expression, in these acts of service? And then being really, really honest with ourselves about how often we actually come from those ways of being when we are taking actions in service of our mission. So how often do we justify coming from an anxious place, trying to get enough done to create peace on earth? How often do we make ourselves the victim of the difference that we want to make on the planet? And it comes from such a beautiful place. This is nothing to shame ourselves for. It comes from our being tapped in to a higher possibility that exists for our planet. However, often we can focus our attention on where we're not there yet and what's wrong and what needs to be fixed, rather than focusing our attention on the possibility that we're standing for. And that makes all the difference in the world. Because remember, where attention goes, energy flows. When we put our attention on what we're for, we're growing what we're for. We're watering that garden. When we're putting our attention on what we're against, that's what we're growing with our awareness. So if we're focused on, oh, I'm so stressed out because so many people in the world don't have tools of transformation, and I have to be this martyr and go save people, not only is that a disempowering narrative for me, it's a disempowering narrative for anybody that I'm working with, because I'm relating to them like they need to be fixed, like they're broken, like there's something wrong with them, which is just reinforcing that narrative. And it doesn't feel good. Context is everything. The context that we create for the work that we do creates our entire experience of it. It creates how we feel about it. It creates the energy in our body. It creates who we be as we are taking those actions. So if the context that we've created is the world is wrong and it needs fixing and I have to fix it. I have to fix it in order to prove that I'm a good person. I have to fix it in order to prove that I have purpose, that I'm needed. It comes from this anxious energy, and really it's that inner child energy within us that wants to be validated and that wants to feel needed so that they can feel safe, so that they feel like they belong because they're needed by the tribe. So can we hold space for that part of ourselves that puts so much pressure on ourselves, that metaphorically holds a gun to our head and says, you better get this done to earn your worth, to earn your keep, to earn your right to exist? Can we hold so much compassion and feel remorse for all that pressure we've been putting on ourselves? And can we remember that the true reason we do the work we do is because we want to, because it's fun for us. It's fun for us to be part of this team of humans that are raising the vibration of the planet. It's fun for us to call forth new possibilities for our earth to get to experience. It's nourishing for us to get to be part of this up-leveling. And really giving up that victim story, giving up that belief that the world is wrong and that we have to fix it. That story is not serving anyone. It's guilt-dependent motivation. It doesn't get us very far. It's not sustainable. And when we've been motivating ourselves for so long with guilt, we sometimes have a little lag when we're switching gears, right? Switching into motivating ourselves from inspiration, from love, from joy, and really giving ourselves permission to be the possibilities that we want to have realized on the planet. That's what it means to actually be the change we wish to see in the world. It doesn't mean struggling and fighting and forcing ourselves to do all this work to make a difference. It means embodying it right here, right now. There's nowhere to get to. This is the destination. The journey is the destination. And this is the core wound that we all carry. This idea that the destination is somewhere out there. once I get a certain number of followers, once I'm making a certain amount of money, once I have a certain number of clients, then I'll give myself permission to really be the embodiment of love. There's all these other ways of being. There's joy, there's peace, there's acceptance, there's forgiveness, and really all of that is under the umbrella of love. So it's truly so simple. And I know we all have heard this so many times. And yet it's one thing to know that we want to be love, and it's another thing to really be it and give ourselves permission to be it and heal from these stories that tell us that we're not allowed to feel good, that if we feel good, that we're not making a big enough difference, that we have to feel guilty for feeling good because there are so many people out there who don't have access to feeling good, who don't get to be safe, which is true. That's true. There are so many people in this world that do not have the privilege of ever feeling safe. And I feel sadness in my heart about that. And I'm not serving anyone by guilting and shaming myself for feeling good. Someone else is in a hole. The worst thing that I can do is crawl down into that hole with them, because now there's two people in a hole and nobody to get help, nobody to pull the person out of the hole. So the best thing that I can do for humanity is to keep myself in a high vibration. And often this takes way more self-care than we think is necessary or than we think that we deserve. Often this takes our being willing to create permission and spaciousness for ourselves well beyond when our mind wants to tell us that's too much. You don't deserve that much. You don't deserve that much feel good. You don't deserve that much spaciousness. And rather than reacting to that fear voice, instead we can choose to be love for that fear voice. Saying, I hear you, fear. I hear you, and I get it. I get that you're afraid that if I give myself too much spaciousness, then I'm not going to be productive enough, and then people aren't going to love me anymore. And I get that that must be really scary for you, right? And we're talking to this part of ourselves, this energy, this fear-based energy that we all carry within us. So we're saying, I get it. I completely understand. And I'm choosing to create spaciousness for myself. I'm choosing to continue self-care again. Even though you think that I've used up my number of self-cares that I'm allowed to have this week, I'm choosing to care for myself again, because I recognize that it is hypocritical, inauthentic, inconsistent, and unsustainable for me to be committed to creating peace, abundance, love, trust, surrender, truth, joy, playfulness, connection on the planet while being disconnected from myself, while not being at peace with myself, while judging myself, while coming from fear, while coming from stress, while coming from anxiety. I recognize that there's no way for me to actually create that on the planet without being it in this now moment. And I give myself permission to do whatever I need to do to get myself into that way of being. And I give up this story that it's productive to work from my stress response. And I choose now to fully practice what I preach by giving myself permission to be it for all parts of myself in every moment. Even the parts of myself that I believe if I give them space, they're going to destroy everything, even those parts of myself. even the parts of myself that I think are unworthy of love, even the parts of myself that I think are unworthy of being seen, the parts of myself that I'm really afraid to allow myself to even see because I'm so disgusted with those parts of myself, especially those parts. I especially give myself permission to be love for those parts, knowing that there is no distinction between the inside and the outside. I cannot effectively guide people to being love for themselves and others while I am cutting a part of myself off from love. And I recognize that the most productive thing that I can do is to be love for all parts of myself. I recognize that transforming the world is an inside job, that it happens within my own being, within my internal state, first and foremost. And I recognize that by my being transformed, I carry that frequency of transformation with me wherever I go and in whatever I do. And I do not actually have to do much. It gets to be really easy to bring transformation to the world because I carry it in my being. And I recognize that when I give myself full permission to do the inner work and give myself all the space and time in the world and I don't rush my healing, that my mere presence is healing and transformative. And I hear you, ego. I hear you. I hear that you want to do. You want it to be hard work so that you can fully take credit for it and also make yourself the victim of how hard you have to work at the same time. I hear you, ego. I get it. And I know that you're just doing your job and you're doing a beautiful job, ego. You're so good at your job. And I love you too. And I'm not in resistance to you. And I see you doing your thing and you can keep doing your thing. And you're my friend. So I don't need to fight you anymore. I don't need to fight any part of myself and I don't need to fight the world anymore. What's inside is a mirror of what's outside. Where I'm fighting the world, I'm fighting myself. So from here on out, I am willing to call myself out on my inauthenticity, on when I am preaching something and practicing something else. When I'm working in service of one cause and I'm not actually integrating that cause into my body and into my being. I promise from here on out that I will call myself out each time that I notice that I'm being inconsistent and I'm not actually embodying the ways of being that I'm standing for. I promise to call myself out anytime that I say, well, once X, Y, and Z happens, then I'll be able to advocate for peace on earth. But in the meantime, I'm going to shame and judge myself and shit all over myself. So I'm willing to, without judgment, simply call myself out when I notice this arise and get excited when I notice that this is arising. Because when it's unconscious or subconscious, I don't have a choice. I'm at the effect of this default way of being. But as soon as I notice that I'm not being in alignment with who I'm most committed to being, guess what? I have a choice now. Yay! That's so exciting. It's so exciting that I realized that I wasn't being love. It's the best thing that I can ever realize because that means that I get to experience more love if I so choose. So I'm realizing that I'm standing for love, but I'm not being love. And I'm not going to shame myself for that. I'm going to celebrate that realization and choose to be love. And especially choose to be love for whatever part of myself I'm shaming or judging. I just felt that one. Yeah. So I'm committing to calling myself out, and I'm committing to being so compassionate with myself. And when I notice that I'm not being who I'm committed to being, I'm committed to forgiving myself for that, first and foremost. And then choosing the new way of being that I want to call on, and then doing whatever the heck I need to do to actually get myself into a mode where I can access that way of being, and giving myself permission to do that feel-good activity. So we're committing to calling ourselves out for when we're inconsistent or inauthentic. We're giving up the right to judge ourselves for that. Instead, we're celebrating that we get to reclaim power and we get to reclaim love. And then we're reminding ourselves of the way that we're committed to being. We're giving ourselves permission to do whatever we need to do to shift gears into that way of being. Whether that means calling a best friend, whether that means doing breath work, whether that means going for a bike ride, going for a walk, taking a bath, taking a shower, smelling essential oils, drinking a cup of hot tea, putting on music and having an ecstatic dance party for oneself. We're committing to creating the spaciousness so that our bodies can remember the ways of being that are so true to us, that are our truth. All we need to do is create that spaciousness, get into our flow, allow that feel good to come back, and then these ways of being are natural. They're who we are. We don't have to force it. Thank you for joining me in this recalibration. It was so recalibrating for me as well. These were words that I needed to hear myself. I would love to hear how they resonate in your body, in your heart, in your mind. Thanks for watching.